everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game that almost no one would probably expect me to review. We're going to take a look at the reprint, the second edition of Cash and Guns. Now this one is put out by Repos and in the United States by Asmodee. It's going to be a party-ish type game for 4 to 8 players, where each player is going to have a mobster or a gangster or some type of thug or whatever you want to call them, who is trying to either bluff or shoot their opponents in order to get the majority of the loot. There's going to be the Godfather, and everybody else is trying to get their hands on this loot by either holding everybody up, faking it and not having a loaded gun, or shooting the opponents, trying to not get shot themselves and take their portion of the loot. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what comes inside of this box? We'll see how the game plays, and we'll come back at the end and get my opinions on Cash and Guns 2nd Edition. So here you can see the components for Cash and Guns 2nd Edition. First things first, we have these awesome foam guns, which now have the appearance of the toy guns from when I was a kid. They have this orange cap on them. They feel really great. They're fun to play with. Spin them around when you're playing the game. Really enjoy those, so those are nice. We're going to move them out of the way, though. We also have different standees that are kind of stereotypical standees. You have the Russian girl, you have the kind of Asian-looking girl, you have James Bond, or James, not James Bond. You have kind of a one-eyed gangster, all types of different guys you can choose to be in the game. You're going to have wound markers, and if a player ever takes 3 wounds, they are out of the game and can no longer win. You're going to have the desk of the Godfather, which is very important. They get to kind of dictate some rules in the game as you're playing. And then you're going to have loot and, of course, your bang and click cards, as well as a diamond thing here. This loot will be out for the taking during the game, and players will be trying to shoot or bluff each other into bowing out of the fight in order to get most of this loot. We'll talk about that in a moment, but it'll be different types of bills, $20,000. We have diamonds that are worth different varying amounts, $1,000 or $5,000. We'll see that in here there's some artwork, and the more art that you collect, the more money you're going to get for your total amount of art. There are even healing cards that will let you heal some of your wounds back, and some cards that are going to give you more bullets. You will have a limited supply of bullets, and if you get these, you can get more bullets in order to shoot more people. There's going to be a large diamond. Whoever gets the most diamonds, not the most value in diamonds, but the most diamonds will get this bonus, and it's worth $60,000 at the end of the game. Of course, the goal of the game being to have the most money. Finally, each player is going to get a set of cards. They're going to get 8 cards, and those cards are going to be 5 clicks that they will have, and 3 bangs. Now, when each round, you're going to choose one of these cards to be your current ammo that's loaded. It could be nothing, a blank, or it could be a bullet. If it's a blank, you're bluffing, and you're hoping that somebody will drop out of the fight in order to not take a part of the loot. If it's a bang, you're hoping that they'll stay in so that you can shoot them, or, of course, drop out and not get the loot. But either way, if you shoot them or they drop out, they still don't get to split the loot and will take a wound. So why don't we set up an example of how this works, and of course, you'll get to see it in action. So here you can see an example of where we're set up for a 4-player game. Each round of the game, of which there will be 8 rounds, you're going to put out 8 pieces of loot. You'll see that we have some $1, $5, and $1,000 diamonds. We have a couple of $10,000 bills and a $20,000 bill. 1 piece of art, and we happen to have some bullets here. Each player is set up. We have 4 players around the perimeter here, and we have Pedro, who is the Godfather, standing behind the desk. He gets a special ability that we'll cover shortly. Each player is going to look at the loot, and then they're going to choose their bullets. Each player has, as said, the bangs and the clicks that they have, 5 clicks and 3 bangs, and they're each going to choose 1 card that they're going to use for this round. So everybody would take 1 card and set it out, and those players are then going to get ready to choose who they're going to point their guns at. So each player's got their 1 card chosen, and on the count of 3, the Godfather counting to 3, each person's going to point their gun at 1 other player. So each player has their gun, and they're going to go ahead and point their guns at 1 other player. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. All right, so each player's got their guns pointed. Pedro's pointing over here at Farah. We have Luca pointing at Deacon, and the other 2 players are pointing at the Godfather. Now, the Godfather at this point gets to redirect somebody. They can go ahead and get a privilege telling somebody to point their gun elsewhere. Since the Godfather has 2 guns pointed at him, he's going to tell Deacon to point somewhere else. So Deacon must now change his aim, and he decides to point his gun at Farah. Now you have the courage round, and each player, on the count of 3 again from the Godfather, has the choice of either staying in or dropping out. They may want to drop out because they have a lot of guns pointed at them. For example, Farah here has 2 guns pointed at her. She doesn't know if there's bullets in the guns or not, but she may not be willing to take that risk. Anyhow, the Godfather is going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, and any player that wants to drop out will drop down or drop their gun. The other 3 players decided to stay in. However, Deacon is no longer shooting at somebody, so he can put his gun down. The same is true for the Godfather, but Luca is still pointing his gun at Deacon. At this point, we would all reveal bullets. However, anybody who's not still pointing a gun at somebody does not need to reveal their bullet and would simply discard it, putting it in a pile to the side. However, Luca is still pointing at Deacon and decides to reveal his bullet, which is a bang, and it shoots Deacon down. Deacon takes a wound and is no longer in this round, so the round is between Pedro and Luca. Luca discards his bang and he's now short 1 bullet. He only has 2 left and has 5 clicks, and you can use this information for future rounds to determine what somebody might do. There are now only 2 players left in the round, Pedro, the Godfather, and Luca, who's standing over here and just shot Deacon. They are going to split the loot between them, so they're going to look and see what they'd like to take, and starting with the Godfather, or the person closest to the Godfather to the left, if they don't happen to be in the round still, is going to get to take some of this loot, 1 piece at a time. They're going to try and determine what's the most valuable to them. So if you've collected a lot of art, you'll see art goes up in value quite quickly once you get multiple pieces of it. However, there's only 1 piece out there now, so they probably wouldn't take it. It's likely the Godfather would take the $20,000 and place it in their supply. Then it would go to Luca, who gets to choose a piece of loot, and he probably takes $10,000. The Godfather then decides to go for diamonds, and he takes some of those. And Luca's like, well, I'm going to try and take some of those diamonds away, and takes 1 of them. However, the Godfather then goes back and takes the other diamond set, and now Luca has an interesting choice. He has these 3 cards to choose from, but he can also take the Godfather position, which will give him the benefit of allowing somebody or forcing somebody to redirect in a future round. And he decides to take that, knocking himself over. Now, of course, he doesn't actually knock himself over. He's still standing, and he has the desk for future round. The Godfather then gets to take another card, and Luca decides to take the extra bullets. When he does so, he's going to look through this discard pile to see if there are any bullets in there, and if there are, he takes 1 of them and discards another card, a click, so that he has extra bullets for future rounds, and now he's back up to 3. The Godfather would then finish out the round by taking the painting, and the loot will be distributed. After we're done with this, everybody would stand back up, take their remaining cards, and prepare for another round. And you'll go through 8 rounds this way, unless, of course, you get shot 3 times without healing, at which point you're out of the game and can no longer win. In addition, whoever at the end of the game has the most individual diamonds will get a bonus $60,000. So you'll add that to your score, and if you happen to have the most money, you'll be the winner of Cash and Guns. Now, in addition to this base game that's in there, there is also an expansion with special roles in it that you can get at the beginning of the game. You can either deal these out or draft them however you'd like to play it, but these roles give you a special ability that you can utilize in the game to try and get an advantage. For example, this says whenever a player is eliminated, you can take up to 2 of their loot cards. So, you get randomly 2 loot from every person that you happen to kill. Or we have the good friend here. It says when a player uses a clip, you also get to regain a bang card. So if somebody else, for example, like Luca here, takes 1 of those clip cards to get more bullets, you get some as well. Or we have the collector that says that they have an extra painting or an extra piece of art at the end of the game towards their set collection. Or the doctor that says when this player lays down, this player will remove 1 wound. So laying down actually heals you. And there's all types of these different abilities that you can use in the game, like I said, either through a draft or through a random deal, to modify how it plays. But regardless, at the end of the game, which is the end of 8 rounds, whoever has the most money will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Cash and Guns 2nd Edition. It's the same game as Cash and Guns, but it's upgraded. It's got the cool, nostalgic black guns with the orange tips instead of the all-orange guns that the first version had. It has upgraded John Kovalic art. So if you're a Munchkin fan or you just like his artwork, it's going to be very reminiscent for you of that. And it has an included expansion inside of it where you get the roles and it kind of changes the game a little bit for you. Of course, this is not a game that's of high strategy, right? I mean, you're going to be pointing your gun gun at people. You're going to hope they're bluffing, and maybe you can find a tell to see if they're bluffing as to whether or not they have a bullet. And you're going to try and best bluff against other people, or just shoot them, in order to remove them from the game or from the loot distribution. It actually gets tensions pretty high sometimes, especially if you're playing with, you know, a loved one, or some friends who maybe have a little bit of a temper, myself included. Why'd you shoot me? Why would you do that? You should have shot this person, and all of that. It goes back and forth, and everybody gets to arguing. So if you have a group that's high tension, you may want to avoid cash and guns, or at least try not to take it too seriously. But all in all, a very fun game, and I know that's probably surprising for a lot of people, but I enjoy it. It's goofy. It takes, you know, 20-30 minutes to play through a whole game if you're playing slowly and bantering back and forth. And it's just a fun kind of end of the night or party type game that I like to have around. So if it sounds good to you, check it out. That is Cash and Guns 2nd Edition.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock.